Welcome to the podcast studio.
Super swanky,
Yeah, this is a first.
sitting together, same room.
Kara is in Nebraska.
I can reach out and touch you.
We got high five.
Yeah.
The cool thing about what we're doing is we didn't even have this planned, but the reason that we sat down to record this podcast is because we just got done with our first ever official. We've done these before, but not as like a staff and as a team. We just wrapped up our first mental skills camp.
It was awesome.
I loved it.
It was so fun.
I also made the mistake of giving every Saturday I give lessons, and so I had already given 3 hours of pitching lessons. So we got home.
You were a little drained.
Yeah,
but it was good.
The energy was amazing.
It was so fun. The girls loved it. They were all in. They were super psyched and did really well. It's really great.
Yeah, minimal gear with the tagline. If you've never heard of this before, we're gonna hope to do more of these, and we thought we'd kind of recap it. It's the only softball camp where you leave your glove at home. There's no gear.
No one brought a glove. There was not a single glove.
Minus the photo shoot. We did a
right, but I mean, as far as the camp attendees, they walked in with a notebook and a pen. Those were their tools today that they were using. No bat, no cleats, nothing else like that.
Yeah. Good. So let's the topic that we thought would be really cool. Kara is the director of team performance, and we got to have some really cool conversations with coaches today. And even better, the coaches got to attend this while their players were attending the camp. So while the camp was for the players, the coaches were walking around observing. And then we actually did a half-hour recap with the coaches and asked them, what did you notice? What did you realize? What were you seeing? And so to hear their feedback and their buy-in, what were some of the things that they gave us like real feedback.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really great for them to see, because I think most coaches know in their brain that this would be a nice thing for their girls to have. They have this idea of mental skills are helpful for athletes, and I would love it if my athletes had mental skills to help them. But then that's a lot of times all the time they have to think about that. They're more worried about scheduling and traveling and practices and things like that. And it's just one more thing for a coach. And so I think was most valuable for coaches today was to be there, to be looking over their girls' shoulders, to number one, be able to see the girls like this. They wanted it. I got to lead the failure recovery station today, and having them walk up, and I was like, guys, you all have made mistakes. We're going to learn how to recover from them quickly. And I was like, do you want that? And they all wanted it. And so for a coach to be able to look over the shoulders and watch somebody teach their girls a skill that they all absolutely need, and to see how receptive they were to that, how excited they were by that, and then how seriously they took it. This is not, I think that's a big fear of coaches is, am I wasting practice time by talking to them about, mindset and all this woo-woo stuff?
Because you have to put the glove down.
Right.
They're like,
they're scared.
Only have, especially in the Midwest, we only have a 2-hour time slot.
Mm-hmm.
If we rent this facility, we have to squeeze every physical ounce out of this practice.
Yeah, they're scared for sure to put the glove down, but to see how receptive, and we only had 6-minute stations.
Mm-hmm.
We had 6-minute stations with these girls. So 6 minutes obviously is not long enough to completely internalize things like failure recovery or breathing or all those other things that we taught. But it was enough time to give them a taste and a look into what you could learn if you continued working on this type of thing. And so I think for coaches to see that it doesn't have to eat up hours and hours of time, that you can get a lot of bang for your buck, that just a little bit of focus on things like this can have a big outcome and can really equip your girls with some really good skills that will help them.
Well, like Shelly Station, we did, for context, just to give you an inside look, my station was about how to catch your negative thoughts. So the analogy that I told the girls was, you have players that will come to you that if they want help with their swing, they might come to you as a coach and say, Coach, can you look at my swing? Am I doing it right? Am I doing something wrong? The analogy that I told the girls was, if you want to fix something in your swing, as a coach, I have to look at your swing first before I can make a recommendation. And while it might feel awkward to admit your negative thoughts, I can't possibly help you until I know what those negative thoughts are. And there's themes. Sometimes, girls will have negative thoughts that are question based. Some of them might be catastrophizing. Some of them might be just a straight up mean girl. And so my station was really cool in that we just sat and talked. And a couple of the girls said that was their favorite. And then we sent them to Shelly's station, which was breathing, which if you wanted to incorporate that into practice, we only taught one of the 3 breathing techniques that we teach.
Mhm.
And, have them practice that. And Shelly could give them feedback on, are you actually using your diaphragm versus, you tell a kid to take a deep breath.
Yeah, what does that look like?
I'm a mental performance coach.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw me at pitching lessons this morning. One of my girls needed to take a deep breath and she refuses to exhale. It's like, if I see you exhale correctly, your mouth is open, you're not attractive.
Yeah.
You got to drop the cool card. You got to exhale.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. And Carly did
that routine, the plate routine.
Yeah. Yep. Which again, that one's hard to go deep on and really explain like the purpose of routines,
the power
why
of routines
give you
yeah.
comfort.
And
that's still good.
Yeah. And then my station was the failure recovery. And we had them come up once again, super quick and didn't have much time to practice it, but come up with a failure recovery routine. So just like you have a routine every time you go up to the plate, if you have a routine of every time you make a mistake or mess up, of something that allows you to take that mistake, acknowledge it, release it, and move on, then when you make the mistake, not if, like when you make that mistake happens, then you're able to move on from it quickly and not allow it to steamroll or to snowball into a bunch more mistakes, which is, it's a common thing to have happen. It's not unusual.
Right. Well, and especially in softball, and I'm glad I remembered to say this. The idea of softball, of as you get older and older, you see the ball less and less. So if we have, 8 positions, the catcher probably doesn't see a whole lot of actual fielding. But let's say I play even a shortstop, you may get the ball 6, 7, 8 times in a game. But if you're playing 7 innings, you could get a ball and then you have to sit with that mistake. If you make a mistake, you have to sit with that ball. You might not get another chance until the next inning. Or if it's a pitcher's duel, let's say your pitcher throws like a 2-hitter or a 1-hitter.
Yeah.
If you're the one person that gets that ball hit to you and you make a mistake, you have to fester in that mistake for an hour plus.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, especially in softball, I think what the girls don't realize is like, especially multi-sport athletes, I was not, you can speak to this more of like basketball, volleyball, tennis. If you miss a shot or you make a mistake, you don't have time to wallow.
Yeah. Basketball for sure. Volleyball a little bit is in the middle. I would put basketball on one extreme, softball on the other, and volleyball's in the middle because you don't necessarily see the ball every point unless you're the setter.
Sure.
But yeah, it definitely it's a different, but at the same time, like every athlete needs a failure recovery in the context of their sport. And so for softball, we can approach it a little bit differently because you do have that minute, that moment that you can really like, I can breathe out, I can kick some dirt, and I can say, I got this. Mm-hmm. In basketball, you might not have that until like your timeout. But you definitely, I coached high school basketball. You get girls that make mistakes, that they feel silly, and then, next time out, they come over and you can see it's still bugging them. Mm-hmm. They got to be able to, in that timeout, maybe shrug it off. Or the next time the ball goes dead, you can't jump back to, oh man, I looked so silly when I fell when I was trying to get that rebound or whatever, like whatever happened. So you do, each athlete, each sport, you have to learn it in the context of your sport. But I dare you to name a sport where failure recovery isn't important.
Right.
Like it's just going to be a little different in the context of your own sport.
Yeah. Today was really fun, really eye-opening. And I think for me, I have taught for the past 6 years virtually. This is, we've done a few camps here and there and I've worked with teams, but this was the first time that we did a true, planned out, station-oriented mental skills camp. And we knew that it was going to work. It's not that we didn't think that it was going to work, but the amount of girls that signed up, I think we had more registered, but we had 49 girls rotate through and come today. So that was really cool. And not just from our area, it was, lots of surrounding towns. And this is definitely something that if you've never experienced mental skills before, which
great intro.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this podcast and this conversation, of course you're like, well, yeah,
I've heard of mental skills.
I know what mental skills are, but I think every team, one of the things that we talked about too is like, if you don't know what mental skills are, or we don't talk about our negative thoughts, or, not to throw out the Gen Xers and, even millennials, we were raised by generations where it was expected for you to squash your emotions.
Yes.
We didn't
Hide it.
talk about our negative thoughts. We would never, ever admit them to a coach, maybe a teammate, but like we were just expected to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. There you go. Mentally tough. We talked about that. And
get over it.
Yeah, get over it, figure it out. And so the message that we tell the girls at the beginning is everybody deals with negative thoughts. Everybody has emotions, and it's not that we want to squash them, and it's not that
emotions are good. Emotions are feedback from our body and our mind, and they're meant to help us interact with our environment. There's nothing wrong with them.
One of the coaches asked that question, and she had a conversation with her pitcher. She mentioned that today. She said, when we gave the coaches the advice of get curious. Do you remember? I don't know if I want to say names, but you know who you are if you're listening to this podcast. She said she was asking her daughter about her body language and her emotions. And the mom got really, really curious. Do you remember what she said?
Yeah, she said, when I saw my daughter would just have this terrible body language when she would make a mistake. And when she asked her about it afterwards, then her and she kind of was coming at it from the angle of like, well, we don't really want that kind of body language. Like I hear that from coaches all the time. Like they want to get rid of the body language on their team because it has a spreading effect. Like it kind of is contagious once one person starts doing it. So when she asked her daughter after the game was over, like, what was that with the body language? Like, what's going on there? And like, we don't really want that. She was like, yeah, but like, if I don't do anything, my coach is going to think I don't care that I made a mistake. My coach is going to think that like, I think mistakes are okay and I'm just going to make another one. Or, I don't really care enough to show that I'm upset. So and that was really eye-opening for the mom and coach who was like, oh, I had imagined all sorts of scenarios of why she was doing this body language. She's grumpy or she's a teenager or she's, just upset with herself. But she actually was projecting onto her coaches of what she thought her coaches wanted from her. And then you're going to come at it from a whole different angle. If you know why things are occurring that way, then you can address it from the fact of like, I know you care. I can tell you care. And we can show we care in other ways other than, the terrible body language after you make a mistake. So that she said that was really helpful for her to like ask more questions and not assume she understood what was going on. And then you're not telling them just knock it off with the body language.
Right.
You're coming at it from, I can see from your body language that you're frustrated. Or I can see from your body language that you're sad or disappointed or discouraged. And I mean, we talk about the emotions wheel all the time, and we can model that as coaches when we come at it and not just say, what's wrong with you? But we can name the emotion that we think we're seeing as well, just like we ask them to name their own emotions. And we can say, I can see you're disappointed, which is different than being frustrated, which is different than being angry, which is different than being sad. So try and name that emotion and come at it with this. Can you help me understand what's frustrating? Like, why are you frustrated? And then they'll tell you, well, everybody else can do it and I can't. And then it's a whole different conversation, and not of stop the body language.
Right.
It's your body language is telling me that you need something from me, help you. And then you'll notice that takes care of the body language. And then all of a sudden they're going to feel like they can come to you. They'll feel like they're being supported. And they'll know that they do care, even when they don't slouch or even when they don't throw a helmet or whatever that you want to get rid of.
Yeah, I love that so much. I did make that mistake as a coach of like, you have those kids that they look like they're on the verge of crying. And it's like, if I talk to that kid about, oh, she's really going to cry, or, oh, I don't want to make her cry more. And it's like, they just need to be validated, like, I think about, if a coach would have come up to me when we were playing and said like, hey, this is really hard. Like we play a hard sport. I got your back. Like it unifies you with your coach on the same team.
Yeah. Puts you on the same team as your players. And I think too often as coaches, we feel like we're fighting against our players as opposed to being on the same team with them and coming together and saying, together, let's go forward, right?
Yeah.
Together, everyone achieves more. Isn't that the team acronym?
Cheesy, corny, corny acronym.
But it's a cheesy acronym because it's true. It's not because it's not true.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things that we kind of had slated, we're cheating if you can see us on video, because we've been posting more to YouTube. I love this because it's more conversational. If you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to this on the podcast, shout out to Kara. Kara's been putting these on YouTube. So if you're an avid listener of the podcast and you want some video format, we're going to try to put more of these on YouTube.
I've been trying to keep up with the most recent podcast episodes and going back, and I'm starting with our most popular episodes, uploading them.
Yeah.
So I think there's 8 or 9 podcast episodes, videos up on YouTube now under.
There you go.
Fearless
We just
Fast
did
Pitch.
like a little mini commercial.
Yeah,
So
Fearless Fast Pitch on YouTube.
we'll put that in the show
Go ahead,
notes.
like and subscribe. Is that what I say? Comment below.
Smash the follow button.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that we wanted to talk about is, I hear this all the time, especially from parents, is I don't know what to say instead, but we say some of these buzzwords. So we're as parents, we get really frustrated. We say, focus, breathe, just relax.
Let it go.
Let it go.
Yeah.
Well, if you've never taught them how, as a coach or a parent, if you've never taught them how to breathe, how to regulate their emotions, what to do when their negative thoughts come up, they don't know what they don't know. I didn't know these until I started researching it. And so your job is to, again, get curious as a coach. And now we have access to, our programs and the internet. And there's just so much education out there of, if you can start to get curious about what are the most common things that you're telling your players, and have you actually taken the time to teach them?
Yeah. And starting at the ground, I love your analogy that you've used plenty of times before of like, if you're trying to teach someone to hit, you don't throw them in the cage at 60 miles an hour. Like, you don't just like push them off the deep end and say, hey, go hit. Like, keep trying until you do it. Like, you start them off, outside the cage. You start them off with form, you practice, and you get them in at lower speeds. You might soft toss or whatever. And you have a progression that you work up through. And mental skills are exactly the same way. You can't just yell at someone to focus. That's the equivalent of putting them in a cage at 60 miles an hour.
Or like a specific skill. So the one I see all the time is, and we did this in the myth series, but visualize success.
Yeah.
A, that's really vague. And B, they just struck out.
Yeah.
So they're focused on the negative. That's like flipping them. You're going 60 miles an hour on the interstate and you're like, throw it in reverse.
Yeah.
It's
it's really hard to do.
You're going to wreck their car. So it's like, and we use this in the coaches workshop of like, I love using visualization for the analogy that you brought up, because it's like, well, and we didn't do it at the camp today, because I feel like that's one that if we did run the camp in the future, we would have the whole group practice visualization
all together
in like a meditation setting, where you start with something simple. So it's like, could you visualize, look down at your shoes, close your eyes, and then recreate your shoes in your mind's eye? Or, hey, can you think of your favorite ice cream flavor? What would that look like? What color is it? What does that have in it? And, visualizing success, it's vague. If they've never had that, or like hitting your first home run, if they've never visualized that before, they don't know what to visualize. But if, again, you have kind of more of these structures of like, what we teach, then it's like, oh, I can do this. Now I can start to visualize my mechanics, or visualize as a mental skill, what my body needs to be doing.
Yeah. And just like any other skill, we should expect that it feels hard and weird at first. At first, it's going to feel hard and it's not going to be easy. It's not like, if I just teach you this visualization, if I just teach you this breathing technique, now you will forever never have any problems. Like, it's going to take practice. And that's one of the reasons why we talk about in our programs about like, you've got to keep using it. You got to practice it. It's not just like, because we all have those things that intellectually we know one thing, but then we actually do another. And I think mental skills are no different than that. Like, intellectually, we know we should breathe. Intellectually, we know that softball in the grand scheme of things does not matter, but it feels like it does in the moment. So we have to practice being able to work our way through those feelings, be able to work our way through getting from this, highly aroused state where we, just like feel like we're going to scream if we make another mistake, and getting ourselves back into our body, back into our mind, where we feel like, I know what I'm doing. I'm confident I can do what I practice. But it takes work, just like it takes work to learn how to hit a fastball, or it takes work to learn how to, do a backhand, or whatever other skill you're trying to learn. It's easy for coaches to think about physical reps and how we need physical reps every day, or every practice we need to be taking those physical reps. And to wrap your mind, it's a little harder to wrap your mind around the idea of like, we also should be taking mental reps every day. And you can, put those together in your practices. It doesn't have to be, okay, now we're just doing physical, now we're just doing mental, but how great would it be if you offered that to your players as well, that not only will I teach you these mental skills, but now we just learned about failure recovery. Now we're going to go take grounders. And if you kick a ball, all right, now I'm going to watch you. I'm going to say, what's your routine? Watch them do it. Watch them practice it. They feel silly at first. They laugh at each other because in a practice, you don't feel as mad about kicking the grounder as you do in a game. But then everybody becomes that normal on your team that you're like, this is what we do. This is how we deal with failure. And then in a game when the same thing happens, when your teammates then see you make a mistake and they watch you go through that failure recovery that you've practiced before, and they know what your routine is, they know she's good. She's got it.
Right.
And they now know, everybody else knows that I know I made a mistake, right? If we go back to that girl who's like, I'm worried that my coach will think I don't care. But as soon as that coach sees she's doing her failure recovery, she knows she messed up. Like, no one has to tell me when I kick a ball. Right. I know that happens. Like, right. And then she can, that shared language and that shared experience is so valuable for a team to have, to help that communication, to help that cohesiveness, and then to help everybody move on together as a team.
Yeah. Well, so earlier, after we had gotten home from the camp, we were hanging out in the kitchen, smashing candy bars and just like recapping. You were talking about goals.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the goals that you had done. Your coach was kind of ahead of.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. And he was even, sorry, Coach Kerwin, he was a little old then, right? Like, he was old then, right? He was not young. And he'd been doing it when I was at, I had my high school volleyball coach, which is a legend. He was an incredible coach, and had an amazing record, had this legacy of teams that had come through and just done really, really great things up in the state of Washington. And yeah, he was very big on visualization. And he would, before games, he would have us, lay on the floor in the hallway, which felt so weird. And I don't know any other team that was doing that. He'd have us close our eyes, and he didn't do any sort of guided meditation, but his thing was like, I want you to close your eyes and I want to see yourself being successful. Now, he wasn't saying visualize success, but he would kind of talk us through. So everybody has had a serve that felt good. Everybody's had a dig that felt good, or everybody's had a pass that felt good. Go back to those times, kind of the highlight reel idea.
Yeah.
So like, what it feels like in your body when you serve receive well. You know what it feels like in your body when you get a good swing and hit the ball really well. And so he would just like start us off, and he would time us. I don't remember how long it was. Sometimes it felt like forever. Sometimes it felt really short, just depending on how into it you got. But yeah, we did that all the time. It was so powerful to me as a younger athlete. And then we also would do the goal setting every single year. The first practice after cuts, after tryouts, was a classroom session. We didn't touch a ball. We just went into the classroom and we did goal setting. And we set goals both as a team and as individuals. And he was very into the idea of process. Like, and I learned about setting goals. I had been told that goals are important, but he really broke it down of like how you set goals and then how you achieve the goals that you set. So we set the big goal, and then he made us break it down. And these are the 3 things I'm going to do. If I want to have 15 aces this season, that means that I'm going to take 25 reps of practice of my serve. I'm going to try and perfect my top spin on my jump serve, or so you would really break it down of like what you're going to work on to then achieve that goal that you have, that big goal. And that was so helpful to get that framework. And like I said, you're with him 3 years in a row, and every single year he stood up, and by that time he'd been coaching for forever. So I'm sure it was very similar spiel that he gave every single year. Mm-hmm. But every single year I would come back, and you're a different athlete. You're a different person in a different spot. And now I'm taking these, and I've gotten a little better. I have gotten a little bit more clear on what I want to work on, how I want to be better. And maybe I achieved my goal from last year, and now I'm ready to take the next step. And so it's so helpful to year after year to come back and to relearn those skills. They never get old. It's never a bad time to practice those things.
But the comment that you made was like, I'm a different person, right? And you're a different team. So whether you're a high school coach or a travel coach, to no fault of anyone's own, like especially in high school, like just by natural progression of like kids quitting and kids graduating, or new kids coming in as freshmen, even on travel teams, you have, 2 to 3 kids that, will decide it's not for them or move to different teams. Like, you may have your core nucleus, but you have a new set of girls, a new set of personalities, a new set of what's possible. And why wouldn't you want to set new team goals
Right.
every year of like what's possible? And you're going to
And
be,
even if they look similar, I mean, I think every year we had some component of what we wanted to do at state, but like different years, we knew based on what we'd done last year what was possible for this year. And so now we could like I remember my I think it was my junior year. They had been to state the year before. I wasn't on varsity as a sophomore, so the year before they had been to state, but they just lost their first 2 games and they had been out just from pool play. They didn't progress past pool play. So then I remember my junior year, the big goal was we know we can make it to state. It's the similar core group of girls. We know we can get there. So now this year our goal is to make it to the second day, which just means you got out of pool play and now you're in the actual tournament. And junior year, that's what happened. We made it to out of pool play. We got to the second day of state, and ended up I think placing 9th or 8th in state, like overall. So it just every year to be able to like build on the confidence, build on the momentum of the year before, and to really then, okay, are we ready for that next level? Are we ready for that next step? And what's it going to take to get from making it to state, like we did last year, and what are we going to do differently or better or more precisely to be able to get us to that next level? And that's such a valuable conversation to have. And like one of the main feedbacks we get from individuals in our program when we ask them at the end of the program, like what was most helpful to them, and without fail, almost every girl that goes to the program said the biggest thing that helped them was realizing that other people are struggling with the same things that they are.
Yeah.
And when you teach these things as a team, you are overtly telling your girls there is nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. You're not broken because you get mad when you strike out. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And and that there's nothing wrong with somebody who doesn't know how to calm themselves down when they get into that super, super high state of like anxiety and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with not naturally knowing how to calm yourself down. We're going to teach you that. We're going to teach you that skill. We're going to give you those tools that you can use to help yourself come back to and be your best self. And so if as a team, we normalize that idea of it's okay to feel bad sometimes. It's okay when you mess up. And this is how we're going to deal with it as a team each and every year, if that's your culture.
Year, but not even every year, but every day. Like it's integrated into practice, integrated into game day. It's not waiting until game day, or it's not waiting
until there's a problem, waiting until all of a sudden all the girls are fighting and they're like, okay, now we need a classroom session. I've been on teams like that before, where it wasn't until there was a problem that we put down the balls and got into a classroom, and then we had to have the team powwow and there's tears and it's like this big emotional thing. What if we can be preventative? What if we can start those classroom sessions and open up those channels of communication well before there's an issue? What if you were a coach that as soon as a girl entered your program, they start learning these skills and they realize that this is the culture on this team. On this team, we know how to deal with emotion. On this team, we know how to recover from failure. And it just becomes woven into the culture of your team. Talk about leveling up. Like that is the next level for any team. And if you look at the levels of any sport being played right now, I think as you watch, if you were to watch a practice or participate in an organization, as you go up each level, I think one of the biggest things that would blow people's mind is how much more time they spend in the classroom.
Oh, yeah.
Whether that's film study, or that's having the mental performance coaches, or that's having just meetings with the coaches, meetings with other players in their same positions. That was my experience, that I had watched a little bit of film, and then all of a sudden, when I started training in the national team pool, like we spent whole days of training just watching film, talking about mental performance, talking about goal setting.
So go back to goal setting, because one of the things that we had talked about earlier today was this idea of we don't just set our goals and then they get slid into a manila envelope.
We never find them again.
It's like it's integrated, it's talked about. It's not just, like one of the coaches said, I think we did a coaches workshop, and it was like, well, if I go to all this work to set all these goals, and then again, they
forget.
The girls forget. It's like, well, do the girls forget, or did you as the coach not integrate it?
Because if you know that, let's say I know my pitcher wants to work on her rise ball, then now when I'm working with that pitcher, if I see that she's not working on a rise ball as much, she's like, hey, let's get back to that rise ball. I know you want to get that better. Or if someone wants to learn how to hit a different pitch, or someone wants to, take more reps doing backhands or whatever, you as a coach can then facilitate that and then be overt, like intentional. I'm all about like the intentionality of saying, you wanted to get better at this. I'm on your team. Let's get you better at
Yeah.
this. So if they're doing just fine with whatever skill you're doing, how about you take this one backhand instead of everybody else is just taking it normal? Like, why don't you take these grounders all backhand? I mean, how you can support then each individual player, but you have to know each individual's goals and understand what it is that they're working on, and break that down. And I just don't think we can emphasize enough how I think a lot of coaches think they just need more reps. They just need more reps. And while that can be true, like I think a lot of times what's happening is between their ears. Like it's just they just really need the reps mixed with all of the other things that help them perform those reps well.
Absolutely.
And then it can just like mellow out the highs and lows. Like we can just kind of like take the tops off of the waves and kind of be more even keeled and just take things as they come and not be so all over the place.
Yeah. That was a question that we got today from one of the coaches too, is like, if we're facing competition that in the girls play down, like if you play a team that's below our level, and I thought it was almost more reversed of like you get more psyched out if you're playing a really tough pitcher or a really tough opponent. And I think the question of like, we know that we can beat this team, but why did we lose to this team? There's no way physically you meet with a team and you're like, physically, we know that we beat them on every level. We're better hitters. We have better pitchers. Why would you ever
on the stat sheet?
On the stat sheet, if it truly was all physical, then you should never lose to those teams.
Right.
Yet it happens all the time. There would never be such a thing as underdogs.
I was going to say,
we root for that.
My coach would always tell us going into those tough games, she's like, that's why we play the games. This is why we play the games, because we don't just practice against each other. There's a reason to like actually head to head come compete. Yeah. Like let's see.
It's mental.
Let's put it out on the field. See who can hang. Yeah. Otherwise we'd just all be practicing against each other.
That would not be fun.
No, not at all.
That's like playing my joke is like, if you're gonna make me play a board game, don't make me play a board game that I could play against myself. So like Sorry, it's just like a luck of the draw of cards. Okay. Like the game Sorry is like a robot. I could play Sorry against a robot.
Yeah.
There's hardly any strategy. Maybe a teensy bit.
Yeah.
Like give me a Othello or a Blockus or a strategy of it. The mental, like
sounds like we need to go play some board games.
Yeah, get in your opponent's mind. I'm trying to think of anything else to add to this podcast, but the main conversation as you're hanging out with us is just how do we bring more coaches into this? And I loved how you kind of ended today's coaches session is like, whether you invest in our individual program, whether you come into our coaches curriculum, we have all of these tools, but you're never going to be able to get buy-in from your parents unless you just start somewhere. And so it's like, we don't want everybody to feel like you have to have our curriculum to be successful. It's like, yeah, we built this because we knew that there was a huge need.
There's a need, yeah.
But we're here to educate. I think we take for granted because we're so close to it. We just assume that everyone knows what mental skills are. And so if you're a parent and you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, I would love my team to have access to this, reach out to Kara. If you're a coach and you're listening to this, and you're like, man, I want to learn more about this. What could this? Just dream with us. Like, what could it look like if your girls knew the mental skills?
And how could that serve your team?
You don't have to teach it.
No, and that's the beauty of this new team curriculum. And I think once again, you're too close to it. You gloss over it. I'm actually surprised at how many people still don't really know about this curriculum that you've released. This team curriculum, it is amazing. Amanda did it all, so I can like brag on her because it's not mine, but like I get to be in charge of it now, and I'm super pumped about it. That it is exactly what coaches have been begging for. It is Amanda teaching their team the skills, so you don't have to teach it to your team. It doesn't have to seem super pointed, like now we need the classroom session because you guys are terrible with your body language. But it's Amanda, an outside voice coming in, an expert in the field, helping teach these skills. She's super engaging. You guys all have seen her teaching. Her teaching style is super engaging. It helps walk them through these different mental skills. It is combined with these worksheets that will help facilitate discussion, will help facilitate them taking what she's teaching and actually come up with their own individualized plan. So she's going to talk about failure recovery, but then they're going to spend time thinking about, okay, for me, when I'm in the field and I make a mistake, what am I actually going to do? What works for me? And really taking those individualized, those skills and making them work for themselves. And so it combines this idea of not only learning the skill, but taking them out of the classroom and putting them onto the field. And it is so well done. It is such, I could see it being such a huge help. Like we said, year over year, every single year, there's 10 modules in the program,
Yep.
which is tons of information, more than you can ever actually implement in any one season.
Well, but we do give them the implementation. Every lesson,
Yes.
every classroom session
Mhm.
is paired with a plug and play, ask this question at practice, do a drill that forces them to, fail, or
Mhm.
do a drill, blah, 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 where like you can literally take that day's lesson of like, here are 3 ways that you can integrate it into
Yeah.
practice.
It's meant to leave the classroom. It needs to get out of the classroom. It has to get out of their notebooks. It has to get out of the classroom, and it has to get on the field. And it literally is taking that off your plate. And if you're a coach that really feels like, I want my girls to learn this, but I don't have the bandwidth to be able to teach it myself, this is such a great resource for them to be able to just turn on the video, to be able to just pass out the worksheets, and then to help just sit back. And then you're in the same room with them.
Yeah.
You hear their discussions, you hear what they talk about, and then you as a coach are clued in. You can understand what they're going through. You can understand what they need help with. And then you are empowered as a coach to then like move forward and take those out onto the field with you. You'll have a shared language that you can use to talk to each other about things like emotions and things like team identity. There's a whole lesson about like, who are we as a team? What are our values? And how do we show those values? And so year over year, you can take these same 10 modules, and just like AB said, each team, even if it's mostly the same girls, is going to be different every single year. And so as you continue to roll through these modules with each new team each year, you're going to be able to really quickly, I think, especially once you get your leaders really bought in and uncomfortable with the material, they're going to be able to turn around and help newcomers. They're going to be able to like really like put their arms around the newbies on their team and really come together so much quicker, because they have a shared language, they have shared values, they understand their place on the team. And that is just such a valuable thing for a team to really come together, because the difference between a good team and a great team is not reps. It's not.
Right.
It's that next level up. If you want to take a good team, is there's in every team that you ever talk to that has achieved something great. Like you talk to Oklahoma teams, or you talk to all these other teams that have done great things, made it, even if they just made it way farther in a tournament than they thought that anybody thought they would. Or basketball, March Madness is a great example. You talk to any of those teams that go on this great March Madness run, and you ask them like, why are you guys made this far? Without a doubt, they will say, there's just something about this team. There's just something different. And these are people that have been playing their sport for forever, and they've taken all the reps, but there's just something different. And this could be that something different for every single team, I think, that uses it. Just like bringing everyone together, teach them the skills they need, and then allowing them to be their best selves. That's the whole idea. We're going to get everything out of the way so that those physical reps can show up on game day.
Yeah.
Instead of the mental reps getting in the way, or the lack of mental reps getting in the way.
Yeah.
So I love this, and this is a fairly new position for me. I've been doing a lot of other behind the scenes tasks, and I love this opportunity.
We're recording this on March 1st. So we started this project I started recording it last fall, but you've really stepped into this role in December. So
yeah, been a couple months.
Yeah.
And I, so far, what I've really loved the most about doing this is getting to meet and work with coaches. So every time I get to jump on a Zoom call and talk to a coach about their individual team and like, hey, how can we help you? Do you need podcast episodes? Do you want some of our other free resources? Would it be helpful if I got on a Zoom call with, some assistant coaches? Or do you need help fundraising? Like what can I help you to be able to help turn around and give these skills to your players? And I love that. So like Amanda already said, if you are not interested, or if you don't have the budget right now or whatever, it's not about that for us. It's not about, if we want to provide this program to the teams that want it and that are ready to make that investment now, absolutely. Like, we're not going to stop you from buying it. But at the same time, like if you're not quite ready to make that leap and you just need someone in your corner, someone to help you out, someone to chat with you, I love brainstorming about how can we help individual people. That to me is what really lights me up. That really like excites me to be able to meet with coaches. And so I love to do that. So if you're a coach listening to this, and you want to meet with me and chat, I love that. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Don't feel like if you reach out, it means that you're making any sort of commitment.
Yeah.
It's all about just connecting and really helping to get these skills into the hands of more players. Like that's our aim for real.
Do you want to make your assessment available?
I mean, I'm open to it.
So
Is that what you want to do?
Well, so we created an assessment. Kara, okay, now it's my turn. Kara has been working really hard. We wanted to come up with a way to help coaches assess. The biggest question is like, okay, we're not using the term mentally tough, but like, what is the mental strength? Like, what's our baseline? And we wanted to come up with a way to evaluate. Now, in the past, if I was evaluating a team, I don't have the bandwidth to fly across the country, but I do work with a lot of Nebraska high schools, and I will travel, and I'm doing evaluations based on just, there's no actual like evaluation rubric. What you did is you took what we had worked on in the curriculum and put it into a team assessment that, we will do with coaches, and it really helped them understand like what are the areas. One of the cool things that we did with coaches today is we actually had them take the assessment live. We had 5 teams submit, and we were looking at their results, and we can immediately start to tell what areas would be most beneficial to like immediately start giving them, resources or feedback on. So if you're up for it, I don't know how many, if you listen to this whole podcast,
you're probably well bought in.
I absolutely think it would be worth giving away some assessments of like, if you're a serious coach, or let's say you're a parent, half the time it's parents coming to me that will then go to battle and get the coach on board. And
that's what we have right now. We have there's a mom on a team that she's the one that, like, I don't want to say dragged, but brought the head coach to come meet with me, and he said, great, let's do it, let's buy it. And she is actually in charge of once a week holding the session where they sit together and they go through the different modules. So she, as a mom on the team, she's kind of said, hey coach, don't worry about it, I got it. Girls can come meet at my house or come meet at the facility, and I will lead these sessions. That's the great thing. Like, it's helpful for the coach to be there, or at least have a report coming back to them, but you're not doing the teaching, so you don't necessarily have to be the one to run the mental skills program. If you got a parent that you feel like you can delegate this to, then that can also be a really, really great way to pass it off and not, add one more thing to your plate.
Well, and Coach Jen would log in that day, take a quick look at it, and she was ready to go for practice that same day on whatever the lesson was. So, well, we can link it below. You've got the link for the assessment, right?
We got a QR code. Yeah, it's there.
So I guess we'll link that. This is like so fun because we're here.
We decided like 20 minutes before we started that we were going to do this
in live. Rearranged my office. For this, so this was so great. Well, I'm sure by the time this podcast episode airs, there'll be lots of photos of the camp, and we'll throw out one more thing. We're just gonna throw this out there. We would love to start traveling. We can't travel to every city, but we could do a West Coast, we could do an East Coast, and then we could do like a
couple
Michigan,
in between,
something up north. I've had a couple of Fearless Warrior parents that for literally 3 years in a row, they've begged me to come to Texas. So we could hit the, hit the States. So if you just want to DM us and you want to start a conversation and see what this would look like to host some camps in your area, we're also open to that. So
it'd be super fun. We want to come meet you. Being in person is awesome.
Yeah.
It's super awesome.
Way different in person, but I can bring the energy on virtual.
Yeah. So. We can do it both. You do it all.
We can do it both. Cool. Well, that's a wrap.
Yeah.
Sweet. Bye. That was sweet.
Yeah.
We have like a blooper reel. Still recording.
Watch now.
Oh, I'd be so mad. Hi, Sarah. Yeah, she has to watch when the end is.